On August 3rd, 2017, at exactly 11:59 a.m., a number was announced that made the entire football world stop. 222 million euros. Not for a club, not for a stadium, for one man, Neymar Jr. That wasn't just a transfer fee. It was more than double the previous world record. And it was a number so absurd that football executives genuinely thought it couldn't be real. But it was. Every single cent of it. And the moment that the money changed hands, football was never the same again. Today, we're going to break down exactly how this deal happened, why PSG did it, what Barcelona did with the money, and whether anybody actually won. To understand this deal, you have to understand what Neymar was in 2017. He wasn't just a footballer, he was a phenomenon. He'd arrived at Barcelona in 2013 from Santos for around 88 million euros, already a huge fee. And within 2 years, he was part of arguably the most devastating attacking trio in footballing history. Messi, Suarez, and Neymar. MSN. In the 2014-15 season alone, those three scored 122 goals. Barcelona won the Champions League, La Liga, and the Copa del Rey. They were untouchable. Neymar was 23 years old, already winning the biggest trophies in football, and he was only getting better. His commercial value was through the roof. Sponsorship deals, global fan base, hundreds of millions of followers. He was bigger than most brands. So, the question was never whether he was worth a massive transfer fee. The question was, who could actually afford one? Paris Saint-Germain had been bought by Qatar Sports Investments back in 2011. And from day one, their goal was simple but enormous. They wanted to build the biggest football club on the planet. They wanted the Champions League, and they needed a global superstar to do it. For years, they circled Messi. They chased Ronaldo. They spent hundreds of millions on players like Ibrahimovic, Cavani, and Di Maria. But they still felt like they were missing something. That one signing that would make the world sit up and say, PSG is serious. And then they found their answer. Neymar. Not just a great player, Messi's heir apparent. The face of the next generation of football. The most marketable athlete in sport outside those two legends. PSG didn't just want Neymar to score goals, they wanted him to change their identity. So they did something no other club had ever done before. They used his release clause. Here's where it gets interesting. Buried inside Neymar's Barcelona contract was a release clause. A number that, if paid in full, would allow him to leave. Legally. No negotiation, and no Barcelona veto. That number was 222 million euros. Barcelona had put it there because it was supposed to be untouchable. A figure so massive that no club would ever realistically pay it. But they were wrong. On that August morning in 2017, PSG wired the full 222 million euros directly to La Liga. Not to Barcelona, directly to the league, bypassing the club entirely. Barcelona tried everything to block it. They raised concerns, they challenged the payment, they did everything but successfully stop it. And just like that, Neymar was gone. The most expensive footballer in history. Signed, done, finished. But here's what most people don't talk about. What happened next is arguably even more extraordinary. Barcelona suddenly had 222 million euros sitting in their accounts, an amount of money that didn't exist in football transfers before that summer. And they spent it. Fast. First, Ousmane Dembélé from Borussia Dortmund for 135 million euros. At the time, the second most expensive transfer in history for a 20-year-old. Then, Philippe Coutinho from Liverpool for 160 million euros. Again, at the time, the third largest ever. In one transfer window, Barcelona spent almost 300 million euros of the Neymar money on two players who honestly never even came close to replacing him. But the real damage wasn't just what Barcelona spent. It was what Neymar's fee told the entire market. It said, these numbers are real and these fees are possible. And clubs around Europe started recalibrating. Kylian Mbappé. PSG paid 180 million euros just months after the Neymar deal, almost like they were trying to set a new record with their own player. João Felix, 126 million to Atletico Madrid, barely 19 years old. Antoine Griezmann, 120 million euros to Barcelona. The goalposts had moved permanently. Before August 2017, the world record was 105 million euros for Paul Pogba to Manchester United, and even that was considered extraordinary. But Neymar made that look like a bargain. Almost overnight, transfer valuations across Europe inflated. Agents renegotiated, clubs reassessed, and the arms race, which was already underway, went nuclear. So, did PSG get what they paid for? That's the question. In some ways, absolutely. Neymar was brilliant at PSG. He won league and titles, he put up massive goal contributions, and he brought global attention to the club in a way that no other signing could have. But was it in the ways that actually mattered to the PSG ownership? The Champions League remained elusive. Injuries kept derailing him. Recurring foot problems, hamstring issues. Season after season, there would be a crucial moment and Neymar wouldn't be fit for it. Their closest moment came in 2020, the Champions League final, PSG versus Bayern Munich. But they lost 1-0. Neymar played, he tried, but that trophy, the one that they built the entire project around, didn't come. And then, in 2023, 6 years after the world record transfer, Neymar left PSG, off to Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia for around 90 million euros. The most expensive player in history sold for less than half of what they paid. So let's ask the real question. Was the 222 million worth it? For PSG, the jury's still out. They got 6 seasons of Neymar. They got global brand recognition. They got moments of genuine brilliance. But they never got that Champions League. And as for football as a whole, that's more complicated. On one hand, the Neymar deal accelerated an arms race that made it almost impossible for smaller clubs to compete. Transfer fees became unhinged from any real economic logic. Clubs started spending money that they didn't have just to keep pace. And on the other hand, you could argue that the transfer market was always heading in this way. PSG just pulled the trigger first. Neymar exposed the truth. In modern football, a release clause is only protection if no one can afford to pay it. The moment someone can, you've already lost. And here's something worth sitting with. Barcelona thought 222 million euros was an unbeatable number. In 2017, maybe it was. But today, clubs are spending close to that on players who have played fewer than 100 senior matches. The ceiling that Neymar shattered has never been rebuilt. It just keeps climbing. The 222 million euro Neymar transfer wasn't just a deal. It was a rupture. A moment that split modern football into before and after. Whether you think it was genius or madness, you can't argue it wasn't significant. It changed how clubs value players, how agents negotiate, how fans think about money in the game. And 6 years on, nobody's really figured out if it was the right move. Not PSG, not Barcelona, not football. But I'd love to know what you think. Was the Neymar transfer the greatest business move in football history, or the moment that sport lost its mind? Drop your take in the comments. I genuinely read them all. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button. It actually makes a huge difference to how many people see these videos, and I want to keep making them for you. Subscribe if you haven't already. New episodes every week. We cover the deals, the numbers, and the stories that actually explain how modern football works. See you in the next one.